Hi, I'm Noor, and I've been hesitating to start this channel for years now. Even though I've had people telling me that I should do it, and yet here I am, finally pressing record, and you know, every fear that I've ever had about being visible is coming to the surface. Who am I to take up this space? What if I get it wrong? What if my voice shakes? Or I say something that comes out clumsy? Or worse, what if no one cares? But here's the thing that I've learned through the years of sitting with people in their pain and more importantly, through sitting with my own, that the things that terrify us most often are pointing us toward exactly where we need to go. So here I am, terrified, and starting anyway. So let me tell you a little bit about who I am. I'm a counselor and an academic advisor living in Prague, but that simple sentence doesn't tell you about the winding road that got me here. I grew up in Singapore, surrounded by the beautiful complexity of a Malay heritage and a multicultural world that exposed me to so many different ways of seeing life. In my 20s, I worked as a graphic designer in the fast paced, creative world of visual communication and marketing. I loved the work. There was something deeply satisfying about taking ideas and making them visible, tangible. But underneath all of it, there was this quiet, persistent pull that I felt. And a question that kept surfacing at the time, constantly at the forefront of my mind: why do we do what we do? Not just in our work, but in our relationships, in our choices, in our suffering. What makes us human? And that question followed me across oceans. In late 2008, I moved to the Czech Republic, and almost immediately, everything I thought I knew about myself began to unravel. Picture this: you are in a new country, far from everyone you know, you don't speak the language, you're living in a city. At that time, I was located in a city about 100 kilometers away from Prague. So you're living in this city where expats like you are nearly impossible to find, and suddenly you're alone in a way that you have never experienced before. That first year, I must say, it was brutal. I was anxious about my ability to sustain myself. I questioned why I was here at all. Of all the countries in the world, why did I end up in one where simply going to the grocery store felt like navigating a foreign planet? I could have been somewhere with an English speaking community, somewhere where it would be easier for me to integrate. But I wasn't. I was here, and that discomfort, that isolation, cracked me open in ways that I couldn't have anticipated. It forced me to sit with questions I had been curious about my entire life, but now I couldn't just think about them. I had to live them. Who am I when no one is watching? What gives my life meaning when everything familiar is stripped away? What is the difference between loneliness and solitude? And what are my experiences teaching me? These weren't new questions. Even as a child, I was drawn to the mystical, the existential. I remember at about 12 years old, I borrowed a book about Sufism from my local library. I didn't really fully understand it at that time, but something in me recognized it as important. In my teens, I gravitated towards mysticism, the big questions about existence and meaning. But there's a difference between thinking about these questions and having to embody them. And Prague demanded that I stop being a student of life and actually become a participant in it. And these questions became my companions. I turned to books, psychology, philosophy, spirituality. I found Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. I discovered Brené Brown's work on vulnerability, and I read Susan Cain's Quiet, and finally understood my introverted heart. And I dove deep into Sufi mysticism, where I found teachings about divine love, about awakening, and the transformative power of inner contemplation. And for 5 years, I did this. I learned, I reflected, I wrote, and I sat with the discomfort. And slowly, something shifted. I realized that these existential questions, the ones about meaning, identity, love, belonging, these weren't problems to be solved. They're invitations. Invitations to live more authentically, more courageously, and more alive. So 5 years into that journey, I couldn't ignore the pull anymore. I wanted to help others navigate the same questions. I wanted to turn my own struggle into something that could matter for someone else. So at 33 years old, an age when many people have already established their careers, I enrolled in a psychology degree at an American accredited university here in Prague. My family supported me, even when it seemed like a wild leap. And it was a wild leap. But it was also the most aligned decision I've ever made. I went on to earn a bachelor's and a master's degree in psychology. I worked as an academic advisor and lecturer, supporting students through their own challenges. And along the way, I continued my training in psychotherapy. But here's what I want you to understand. None of these credentials make me an expert on being human. They've given me language, frameworks, tools, sure, but the real work, the work of grappling with loneliness, of confronting the fear of not being enough, of learning to live authentically, that work I've done alongside you, and I'm still doing it. So why am I starting this channel? Why this and why now? Because I've spent the last several years sitting with people, listening to them tell their stories, and over, I hear the same themes. I feel lost. I don't know who I am anymore. I am doing everything I'm supposed to do, but I feel empty. I'm surrounded by people, but still feel lonely. I don't know what my life is for. These are existential questions. They are the questions that wake us up at 3 a.m. in the middle of the night. They are the questions that surface during life transitions, breakups, career changes, losses, even awakenings. And yet, so much of psychology nowadays feels clinical, feels distant, detached from the messy lived reality of what it means to be human. And I want to change that. I want to make psychology more human, more accessible, and more real. I want to talk about loneliness not as a diagnosis, but as a doorway. I want to explore meaning making, identity, love, and belonging, not as abstract concepts, but as lived experiences that shape how we move through the world. I want to hold space for questions that don't have neat answers, for the contradictions, for the beauty and the pain that coexist in every human life. And I want to do it here, in this imperfect, messy, vulnerable way. Not from a place of having it all figured out, but from a place of being in it with you. This channel will be part psychology, part philosophy, and part storytelling. I'll share frameworks and concepts when they are helpful, but mostly I'll be speaking from the heart about what it means to live a meaningful life, to navigate loneliness, to reconnect with yourself when you feel lost. I'm thinking of calling it From Loneliness to Loveliness at first, at least these opening series of videos, because that's the journey I've been on and the journey that I want to walk alongside you. And yes, I'm terrified. I am terrified of being judged. I am terrified of putting myself out there and having it fall flat. I'm an introvert, and visibility doesn't come naturally to me. My instinct is to retreat, to stay quiet, to protect my inner world. But here's what I've learned along the way. Vulnerability is not weakness. It's the most courageous thing we can do. And if I'm going to invite you into this deep existential conversations, I have to be willing to show up fully. I'm not here to be perfect. I'm here to be real. To speak the truths that often go unspoken, to create a space where you can feel less alone in your questions, in your struggles, and in your search for meaning. Because the truth is, we're all trying to figure this out. We are all navigating the paradoxes of being human, the longing for connection and the need for solitude, the desire for certainty and the reality of uncertainty, the ache of loneliness and the possibility of deep soulful belonging. And maybe, just maybe, if we can talk about these things openly, we can bring our whole messy, beautiful selves to the conversation. We can transform loneliness into something else, something richer, something that looks a lot like love. So that's why I'm here. That's why I'm starting this, not because I have all the answers, but because I believe in the power of asking the questions together. This channel is for you if you've ever felt lost, if you've ever questioned your purpose, if you've sat with loneliness and wondered if there's more. It's for you if you're navigating a life transition or just the everyday challenge of showing up as yourself in a world that often asks you to be someone else. It's for you if you're ready to explore what it means to live authentically, to connect deeply with yourself, with others, and with something larger than yourself. I don't know where this journey will take us. I don't know if I'll stumble over my words or if my cat will want to be in these videos with me, but I'm here and I'm inviting you to be here with me. So if this resonates, if something in you is saying, yes, this is what I need right now, please do subscribe, come back, and let's walk this path together. Thank you for being here, for witnessing this imperfect beginning, and let's see where it takes us.